my husband and I, we loved the message. It kept coming up, and we started reading all the parenting books and trying to figure out like how are we going to parent. And we kept going back to this "be who you came to be." It's like, what if we just did everything to raise this child, our two boys, to be who they came to be, not who we wanted them to be, not who the world wanted to be, and really this strong sense of identity, self-awareness, self-regard, which is where all the emotional intelligence comes in, so that they can discover what they're good at, what they like, what their strengths are, what their passions and purpose and authenticities are, the ability to try new things. And so we were pouring all this "be who you came to be" knowledge into them. And we had this realization. We were like, we've stopped being who we came to be.
Welcome to Climbing the Corporate Ladder Without Breaking a Heel. I'm your host, Dr. Cynthia. With over 30 years in the corporate world as a single mom, cancer survivor, and often the only woman in the C-suite, I understand the balancing act high-achieving women face. Now an executive coach and international speaker, my mission is to embolden every woman in the C-suite or on the rise to claim her agency and challenge the norms holding her back. Tailored for ambitious professional women, this show features candid conversations with powerful business leaders sharing their real stories of success and failure. If you're ready to look up and step up, you're in the right place. Join us and invest in your future today. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Climbing the Corporate Ladder Without Breaking a Heel. I'm your host and your coach, Dr. Cynthia. I'm super excited about today's guest. Tara Renze is a keynote speaker, author, and a former executive for over 2 decades, and a leading voice on goal setting and being your authentic self. Be who you came to be. She's also the creator of the Butterfly Goal Effect. And I'm super excited to jump into this and learn more from Tara. So welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. What in your bio did I not mention that the person listening should know about you?
That my favorite roles in life are mom to Ben and Jack, wife to Scott, and my dogs Olive and Fog. Rock Chuck Jayhawk, if you're listening, we named our dog after Fog Allen. They're my biggest fans. So if you hear them pipe up during the podcast, it's just because they love me so much.
That's right. Yes, I always say my little Lily, my little English Springer Spaniel, is the often uninvited guest, but
Yes,
she too is my biggest fan, follows me everywhere. So
I
it's
love
good to
that.
have that unconditional
It
love.
is. I mean, what would we do
Yeah,
without that unconditional love?
exactly, exactly. Well, I want to start with kind of your origin story around this idea of be who you came to be. I mean, there's so much packed into those few words. Talk about how that came to be.
Yeah. So I mean, it's hard to believe it was almost 2 decades ago that I first read that message, "Be who you came to be." It actually, wasn't written to me. It was a note that my 87-year-old grandmother wrote to my newborn son, my firstborn son, the week that he was born. And, my grandmother wrote a lot of letters, like penmanship and taking time to write was just something that generation really did. And, it
Yes.
wasn't a week didn't go by that I wouldn't get a letter from her. And, this one was really special. She put it on this really beautiful powder blue stationery, fitting for her first great grandchild who happened to be a little baby boy. And she wrote this beautiful, it read almost like a little love letter. But her life's advice that she left him with was be who you came to be, love will guide you. And,
Mm.
from the minute I read that, it really took my breath away. It really made me stop and think. And I think most of all, it was kind of that like first realization as a mother holding this little tiny baby, like, oh my gosh, I am going to get to watch you be who you came to be, grow into a boy and then a man and just watch your life unfold. And what a gift and a privilege that was. And then the note continued to evolve in my life and my husband's life, and now is the mission behind everything that I do.
Yeah, yeah. And such an important reminder. We hear a lot, I think, about be authentic, be yourself. There's a lot of that, and it's almost to the extent that it gets lost
Yes.
along the way. When you think about be who you came to be, sort of at its essence, what is the advice to the woman listening who's the primary audience here?
Mhm. I think what happens is, well, my husband and I, we love the message. It kept coming up, and we started reading all the parenting books and trying to figure out like how are we going to parent, and we kept going back to this "be who you came to be." It's like, what if we just did everything to raise this child, our two boys, to be who they came to be, not who we wanted them to be, not who the world wanted to be, and really this strong sense of identity, self awareness, self regard, which is where all the emotional intelligence comes in, so that they can discover what they're good at, what they like, what their strengths are, what their passions and purpose and authenticities are, the ability to try new things. And so we were pouring all this "be who you came to be" knowledge into them. And we had this realization. We were like, we've stopped being who we came to be.
Oh,
We've
interesting.
gotten into our midlife. We became parents, we became career focused, ambitious people. And suddenly that's our identity of what we were trying to teach our kids to do was try new things, do this, stay with your passions and purpose. And we realized that we'd kind of lost it. And I think that that's what happens, especially, when I first took this message to market, I spoke predominantly to women. My book is actually written directly to women because we are the ones who put everyone else first. And what happens is we lose sight of who we are and how important authentic us is in the equation of success for our career, for our family, for our marriage, for our friendships, for our community, for everything that we're doing. And so I think that that's where the essence of "be who you came to be" is it's not like you reach some point in your life and arrive. The message wasn't go to college, work until you're, you find out what you want to do, get married, have some kids, and then just keep doing that the rest of your life. But
Yeah,
that's what we do. We check all the
right.
boxes, and then this is why people have midlife crises.
Yeah, that's so important. And it is. There's sort of this expected path, whether somebody says that it's expected of us or we just internalize that that's the sort of path you're supposed to take. I had my son and my grown son and my grown daughter on a bonus holiday episode of the podcast,
Oh, I love that.
and yeah, it was a lot of fun. But Jordan, my daughter, said something that she and I had never had this conversation. She recently went, she stayed at home. She has three children, and she stayed at home when the two littles, the more recent two, the 4 and 5 year old, came along. So she's been out of the workforce in terms of outside the home for the past 4 to 5 years. She just re-entered the workforce, and what was interesting, she said on the podcast, and it so aligns with what you just said. She goes, there was a point where I lost my identity. My
Yeah.
identity became a mom. My identity became everything about being a mom and a wife and a stay-at-home mom and
Yeah.
wife. And, she's into music, she's into theater, she has a lot of side hustles. Um and it was the first time I heard her say that, she really lost her identity of who she was kind of at
Right.
her core, who she came to be. And you can be a wife and a mom and a singer and, whatever your
100%.
things
None
are.
of those things are mutually exclusive. And I think this is where working women really get it wrong, and even stay-at-home moms, right? Because it's like, oh, and it's this constant battle for working women of like career, family, career, and like you can kick ass at your job and be a great mom. Like those two things are not in competition.
That's right.
And then you can also sing in the church choir and take time to, train for a marathon and learn how to bake sourdough bread and do all the things that you love personally. Like there's enough space for all of that. And once we can come to terms and are mentally fit enough really to understand that these things aren't in competition, my kids don't need my omnipresence. They need me to be who I came to be,
Right.
then everything starts working. But even with, women who choose the path of staying at home, which I think is a beautiful thing. I completely left my corporate career and started selling jewelry so that because I needed something. I needed like I just was like I need something to flex my sales and leadership muscles, and I love jewelry, and it was literally kind of this first butterfly goal of like, hey, I could actually still do something and be a stay-at-home mom. And I think that though we feel like, oh, we have to pour it all into that then, and then we lose sight of who we are. And It's just really unfortunate, but I do see it happen more with women than anything, but I do, working in the corporate world, see this a lot with men in their 40s and 50s when they literally are approaching a midlife crisis at work because they feel like they have no identity outside of their career or
Yes.
the role of husband and father.
Right, right. It becomes everything. And I mean, I can relate to that. Throughout
Yeah.
my corporate career, it became who I was, why I was. And when I left, not on my timing, that was the first real struggle
Yeah.
was, well, who am I without my big corporate job and my big corporate title and a team that I lead and all these things that for 30 years, in addition to being for a time a wife and
Mhm.
always a mom. Um, and you're right. It's so easy to get sort of caught up and lost in a singular
Right.
focus.
Well,
Yeah.
and we start measuring our success in life on the career, and, even when I left my corporate job to be more present in the home, and I had this jewelry business that I was doing, I really I stole so many years of fulfillment in those early years because I felt not successful, less. I didn't have the monetary the money and the car and all these things that I'd earned, and also I think just the respect and that people thought, oh, Tara's super successful career woman, and then suddenly I was the one who told myself, and now you're just a stay at home mom who has a jewelry business, and what a terrible mindset. I mean, and I do think, I mean, we could talk for a long time about how I feel about society and what they like the really, I feel like we've been put in these pigeonholed into these positions where we should really be celebrating. If a woman can stay home with her kids for a few years when they are little, I don't know why we're so worried about women leaving the workforce to do that. We should be like celebrating that and figuring out ways to keep them engaged in the workforce or bringing them
Right.
in for panels, discussions, and, quarterly meetings, and making sure that we are keeping our, finger on the pulse of these women who are highly qualified to reenter the workforce when they are ready. But in the meantime, it's not like something of like, oh, she left their job. Like, people talk about it in a negative context. It really bothers me.
They do. They do. As though you've given it all up and everything's downhill from there because you've left this opportunity. And what I say is, I look at my daughter raising 3 kids and having stayed at home, I'm like, when she was reentering the workforce and a little hesitant, right? A little bit of worrisome. And I said, "Jordan, who negotiates conflict better than a mom of littles, right?
100%.
Who has to have time management like crazy? Who is able to negotiate in general, right? To win over whatever the situation is. I mean, there's so many incredible skills, knowledge,
Right.
attributes that get fostered in that environment that are directly applicable to the
And yes, and then
workforce.
just managing schedules, and then all the soft skills of, the emotional intelligence aspect that we bring back. And so, I mean, I think we've got a lot of work to do as a society, but any woman that's listening that is thinking, I really want to do this, but I feel like it would be a step backwards. It's not a step backwards, and you
That's
are
right.
super hireable, and every company I talk to, they want women in the workforce. They would love for women to come back into the workforce. And, I usually tell them like, well, then you need to make jobs that appeal to those women, that they want to come back and be part of your culture. And they do, they want you, they need you. And I think so much of it is just how we show up after that. And I do, I write a lot. I have a podcast, and you know what my stickiest content is all has to do with around lessons I learned from motherhood, friendship. People like that more than like, one
That's right.
time I was on a corporate call back in, 2005 with a multi-million dollar client. People are like,
Right.
"Who cares?" But when I
Right.
talk about my son's track meet and him jump starting and getting disqualified, everyone's like, "Oh my god, how did you handle this defeat?
Yeah.
I mean, how did you handle that letdown?" So,
Yeah. Oh, and you said something earlier too when we were talking about being singularly minded, and that so often we think that we can only do this one thing, or we put all of our identity into one thing. When I talk to women about boundaries, one of the things that that I look at is the crossroads of how what is the intrinsic value I get out of doing this thing? And what is the external perceived value? So
Mhm.
I think it's important to my kids' school, or I think it's important to my church. I think it's important to whatever. And then there's this, well, how important, how
Right.
gratifying, et cetera, is it to you? In my research, the thing that we give up first of all, we've tried to put everything into it's all important, right?
Right.
And then when you ask a woman to say, okay, pull some things out of that, you can't do it all. The very thing we give up is the thing that we love the most. Okay,
Yeah.
then I won't take the time to go work out, or I won't take the time to learn how to bake sourdough bread or
Mhm.
whatever, so that we can pour into everyone else.
Yep.
Yeah.
Women are so notorious for that, and, it's not a bad thing until it is, right? I mean, that's naturally what we do. We're nurturers, we're pleasers, um, but, you can't the minute that you take yourself out of the equation and you lose your own identity is when we move into we get resentful, we get, often angry, we live in scarcity versus abundance. It's so there's actually a great, if you go I can't remember what um I need to figure out what the link is on my website. I will find it for you and you can put it in the show notes. But I have this link that you can take this saboteur assessment and find out how you self-sabotage and your self-sabotaging beliefs. And for women, it's so interesting because for me, I'm a pleaser and a hyperachiever. Well, those 2 things can go hand in hand and work really well, but they also can be terrible because the hyperachiever in me wants to be the ambitious career woman who goes out and does her thing. But then the pleaser in me is trying to make everybody happy and keep my kids and husband and everything. And then what happens is when things start going bad, those 2 things implode and they work against each other. Suddenly, the
Mm,
hyperachiever in me says, "You're no good. You're not achieving, you're not doing anything good." And the pleaser in me saying, "I do everything for everyone. Nobody does anything for me."
right.
And so the saboteurs can be good in a way that like, hey, it's good to please people and it's good to work to make sure that things are functioning well and it's great to be a hyperachiever until it's not. And I think for me just being mindful of those things and through that assessment, I really found out, when things work and when they don't and then how they show up and just that mindfulness of it has given me so much permission to be who I came to be.
Yeah, I highly recommend for the person listening to we will have the information in the show notes, but to go to Tara's website and to engage in that assessment. Those words both resonate with me, so I can appreciate both the high achiever and the pleaser. I'm like, yep, yep, that's
Yeah.
me. Guilty. You alluded to butterfly goals earlier, and you have been bringing this beautiful message and movement around. It's the how, isn't it? It's the how you can exercise being who you came to be. Talk about the butterfly goal effect and how the person
Yeah.
listening can use that.
So the butterfly goal effect is essentially when we start working on ourselves, everything else in our life gets better. And the notion of butterfly goals was something that, I thought about really early on when I was bringing the Be Who You Came to Be message to life and how just the evolution of a caterpillar to a butterfly and how beautiful it is that something like a caterpillar could become a butterfly. And I think what happens is, kids set butterfly goals all the time. They have these wildly audacious goals and they're not afraid to do them. They're not afraid to put it out there. We encourage them to try new things, to fail, it doesn't matter what it is. It's like, "Hey, yeah, you should totally do that." My son this year just or I guess last year decided that he wanted to start a fragrance business. I mean, and just so you know, the first fragrances, they were terrible. Like, I just remember being like, how is he ever gonna get this going?" But this was this giant butterfly goal, and now he has these really nice he just kept figuring it out. And, started off as a caterpillar, literally making, like, the worst smelling stuff, and now he's still I believe, like, he's still in the evolution phase of what he's doing, but what happens is we get to our midlife specifically, and we think we've checked all the boxes, and we get so thrown into career and family generally, that all the butterfly goals, we just put them away because we're the caterpillar, and the thought of trying to do what it would take to grow into that
Mhm.
seems like it could just be forever. But that's the beauty of a butterfly goal. It's not about doing more or less. It's about becoming more. And so it's interesting. I ask people like, "What's your butterfly goal? What is it that you've always wanted to do that you've never done?" And the the answers are Well, it's funny, a lot of times people are like, "I don't know." I'm like, "Come on, I know you know." And
Right.
they're in that permission I call it the permission gap where they're like, "I don't know if I could say it because it sounds so wildly audacious and crazy." Um, and then what's interesting is once they have that permission, they go out and start doing it, and then it totally starts changing their whole life. So whether it is, like, growing a tomato garden, running a marathon, writing a book, there's a whole entrepreneurial aspect of it of people who wanna go out and start that company. My husband this year, his butterfly goal for the fall, like we were getting ready to like pack our backyard up, and he's like, "What if I brought all these plants in?" Because we have this big backyard and all these potted plants. He's like, "What if I brought them in and kept them alive all winter?" I'm like, "What a great butterfly goal." He has been in there piddling and figuring out and researching and doing. He didn't know what he was doing, but again, it's about becoming more. And
Yeah.
it's been everything from people growing a tomato garden to learning how to do a handstand, painting a mural. I mean, so it can be really anything. I mean, mine original one when I was, like, doing all this was, like, what could be the craziest butterfly goal I could come up with? And it was that I always wanted to get on a game show. Like, as a kid, like, my whole life, I was always like, "I'm gonna get on a game show." And I realized, like, I had never taken one transactional action towards doing that. And then what was interesting is when I set the goal, I just started figuring it out. And I think that's what's so beautiful about butterfly goals is we just start figuring it out. We don't feel the pressure of like I have to do this by Friday or these transactional things that we get derailed on and then what do? We quit because we're like, "Oh, I
Mhm.
fell off. I stopped doing it," versus like I'm going to figure out how to make this happen. And what's crazy is they always come to life.
Yeah, there's so much manifestation in that, right?
Yes. Yes.
It changes the way you think, you feel, you behave, you show up, is that you put that not to be woo-woo, but to be really factual. You put it into the universe. You sort of commit to that. And to your point, it starts with, okay, well, I'm not going to be on a game show if I've never even researched the process of how do you get on a game show,
Right.
right? There's pretty good chance that's not going to just nobody's going to knock on your door. Um, it's interesting. I think that's where our framework and thought leadership really intersects because I talk about the 7-minute pivot and it's just this incremental movement toward something,
Yeah.
right? And so if for the person that's saying, well, I don't know what my butterfly goal should be, take 7 minutes, set an alarm, start journaling about all the things that brainstorm really, mind map. What are the different things I love to do that make my heart sing, etc. And then I suspect in very short order, you come up with a whole laundry list of
Yeah.
things that you could say, "Okay, what is it? What is it for this year or this quarter?"
Yeah, and there usually is, like, one overriding thing that people, again, are like, "I always wanted to do this," or, "I always thought about this," and we start putting it off because we have to grow up, right? I mean, we ask children, "What do you wanna be when you grow up?" And
Yeah.
so it's like this destination, and then we just drop everything else, and so, I mean, it's been so fun to watch people's butterfly goals, come to life. One of my favorite ones was I was doing a breakout session, like a workshop for Aflac. And we had our table groups. These are salespeople, so they're movers and shakers. They've got goals and everything. And a lot of the butterfly goals were like, I mean, people sign up for like triathlons, like on the spot, and it was so cool just to see one the camaraderie of these teams that it wasn't even a company goal, but what happened culturally when everyone started finding out about each other's passions was this, acceptance and inclusion and excitement and just this positive movement. And there's this guy, and he was like, he's like, I really want to learn how to grow tomatoes. And everyone was like, okay, well, have you ever tried it? He's like, yes, I fail every time. Like every time I can. And they were like, okay, you're going to grow the tomato garden this year. And he said, he's like, God, I felt that was so dumb. All these people like, because sometimes you have these, like, I want to write a book or start a podcast, like these big things. And this guy was like, I just want to grow a dang tomato. And so he messaged me like after the end of summer and he said, remember, like we had the thing. He's like, I grew a tomato. He's like, I got to tell you, bringing the tomatoes into the office was like one of my best professional days ever because everyone was so excited about the butterfly goal that he grew the tomatoes, the amount of pride, and then he's like and then people even coming up to me the next day being like, "We had the best BLTs last night," and it was one of those, like, the simplest butterfly goal, but it literally changed how he felt about himself, his capability, his his role even in the organization and how in the office, and it was just, I don't know, it was such a cool story. And then him
Yeah.
just figuring it out. Like, it didn't feel like I have to achieve this, but it was this, I want to grow and I wanna figure this out. And so then even the setbacks and the like, "Oh, the the bunnies are coming in and eating my plants." Instead of just getting angry about it, he was like, "Okay, I gotta figure out the solution for this." It was just this constant evolution of growth versus pressure, which I thought was just
Right.
it's a really interesting phenomenon, honestly.
Well, there's so many lessons in that too that you highlight, which is this notion of just kind of tethering it all together, this idea of the butterfly goal being something that is aspirational, it's of interest. I spend a lot of time in the natural talent space, right? And so when we're doing something that is part of our hardwiring, our DNA, we get that intrinsic satisfaction. So, he obviously had this desire, need to grow something, literally produce it,
Mhm.
see it come to fruition. But to your point, it's the camaraderie that comes around that, that's putting your aspirations into the universe so that it's not that you're doing it quietly where nobody knows about it. Talk about your butterfly goals, right?
Yeah.
Share them with others so that you can have other people feel, encourage you, support you, inspire you. I love the full circle moment of I can do big things, I can do hard
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, and so my butterfly goal this year personally is I wanna learn how to do a pull-up, and I have been, like, trying to figure out my fitness routine and everything, and I was like, "What if I set some, like, crazy thing, like do a pull-up?" Or I've a friend of mine wanted to learn how to do a handstand, I was like, "I don't know about that." Although I will tell you, her journey is documented, and I actually shared it on my Instagram. I think it was like 3,300 times she learned, but now she has the coolest photos. Like, there's a picture of her in front of the Eiffel Tower doing a handstand. Like, she has got all these cool pictures because it's crazy. She's
Right.
like, one day it just clicked. And so it's been even just through the new year of this journey of, like, learning how to do a pull-up, it's gotten me in the gym, it's made me consistent, I've been excited about it. Just, I'm making very l I mean, the progress is for a pull-up is so hard, it's so minimal, but it's been really fun, and I've had so many people reach out to me and be like, "Oh my god, I love this. Tell me why you decided to do this." And so one of the butterfly goal has to be transformational, it has to be aligned, it has to be brave, and then it has to be expansive, meaning it changes you and or it helps change other people around you. So it could be a community service project that helps other people. But the expansive I was shocked how expansive putting a butterfly goal out of doing a pull-up would be, but I've had so many people who are like, "I'm gonna actually try to do this, like, I'm gonna do this with you." And then or it's inspired them to do something else small that they've always wanted to figure out how to do.
Yeah. Break those components down again
Yeah.
and let's just go through each one of them. So for the person listening, as they're thinking, well, I don't know where to start with my butterfly goal.
Yeah.
That framework is so helpful because it
Yeah.
challenges you to go a little deeper.
Yeah. So I think that people get confused with bucket list and butterfly goal. A bucket list
Mm,
is I want to go to New York City. I've always wanted to go. Okay, that's a bucket list. Go to New York City. But if someone said, I really want to go get submersed in Italian culture, so I'm going to go live in Little Italy, New York City for a week, that would be a butterfly goal. That's a much more specific, which goes into the T, transformative. It has to be something
mm,
transformational where you are going to either have a mental transformation, a physical transformation. It's going to transform something within your community or your culture that you're in. So it has to be transformational. Like, it's not who you are today. The caterpillar becomes the butterfly. And it is part of being who you came to be. I mean, if you think about who you were 5 years ago, it's not who you were today. If you think about who you
right.
were at the beginning of last year, it's not who you are to be. Who you came to be is a lifelong assignment. So it has to be transformational. That's the T. It has to be aligned, and authentic to you. I think that so many times we set goals for the sake of setting goals, or that someone tells us, "Oh, do this with me," and we never wanted to do it to begin with. And I would when I worked in the sales and sales leadership world, I would see people set goals and then they failed. And the reason is they were never committed to the goal. It wasn't aligned with them. They said they wanted to do all these things, but they didn't want to work that much. And it wasn't the life that they wanted to live. And so it really has to be deeply aligned with you. Only you will know if it's aligned with you or not.
Right.
And then it has to be brave. It has to be something that gives you those butterflies in your stomach that makes you feel like, why would I put this out into the world? Like now like the pull up, for instance, like just so you know, my first pull up was like maybe like maybe moved a nose hair or something. Like I don't, it was tragic. It was not good. Even with getting on the game show, I mean, it was so I had to be so brave to do it. I just did a reel about, is dry January a butterfly goal? It is, because that's a brave thing to do, to say, "Hey, I'm not gonna drink for a month," knowing that you're gonna be in social situations and all this stuff when people will be like, why aren't you drinking?"
Right.
Immediately judging you, thinking like, "Did you, put wrap your car around a tree? Like, did you have
Right,
some
right.
problem? Did you embarrass
Yeah.
yourself at a company party over Christmas?" No, it's just a brave butterfly goal that's gonna be transformational. And then E, it has to be expansive, meaning that it's expanding you, your mental fitness, your physical fitness, your world, or and it inspires other people, or it's something expansive like that you're doing in your community where, you're helping other people, which has that, ongoing ripple effect that happens. So if it checks all those boxes, then it's a butterfly goal.
I love, love that. And I love your comment about becoming um, who you came to be. Being who you came to be is a lifelong assignment.
Yeah.
I think that is so beautiful because I do find that it is this ongoing evolution. And if it's not, that should be concerning, right? If
Yeah.
you're the same person today you were 5 years ago and with no desire to grow and mature and become, um, I'd be concerned. I'd be
Yeah.
concerned that you're sort of stuck
Well, I think
in
it
a
sounds
rut.
scary too, right?
Yeah,
Like, but this is the hyperachiever trap, and it's why people get into burnout, is because they think, once I achieve this, once I become this, once I do this, I will have like they feel like they're gonna reach this like ultimate, end of the rainbow, a pot of gold of fulfillment, and it's just not the way it works. Like there's always a next level, a new version,
yes,
a 2.0, a 3.0. And we grow, change, and evolve. And like what was fulfilling in your life 5 years ago might not be anymore now. And that's okay. And this whole be who you came to be, it's allowed me to navigate relationships and friendships changing, which for women, I mean, I don't know about you, but I've lost some friends in my midlife and it felt like a high school breakup. Like it was heartbreaking. And what I realized was like, we have just become different women, and it didn't make the relationship bad or what we had bad, or it wasn't even like, it was just like, we grew, we changed, and how wonderful that we had that time together, and now we're becoming
right.
who we came to be. And it was a beautiful spot in my life to have that friend, and then we just kind of outgrew each other, and that's okay. Like, not everything has to have a negative narrative, and I think that that's what Be Who You Came to Be has just given me this nice, just, like, permission slip to, pour my heart into things, and then what works out, and when it doesn't work out, it actually always works out like it's supposed to.
Yeah. I wanna link that to the professional woman that's listening because I find, again, from our research with Now Near Next, it was so much about we found women start to feel at some point in their career trajectory. For me, it was more than once, stuck, stagnant, restless.
Mhm.
I think just aligning that back to what you're saying is that's a signal,
Yeah.
and that may well be a signal that you have graduated or you're ready for the transition, right?
Yeah.
You are no longer being who you came to be because
Mhm.
there's more
Yeah.
because what we found is it was this lack of self-actualization. I feel stagnant or stuck or restless because I don't feel fully actualized. I have more to give, more to do,
Yeah.
more to contribute, right? And so asking yourself, am I living in of who I ultimately came to be?
Mhm.
And it's a signal of a transition point.
Yeah. Well, I think that, I mean, I was there in my corporate career. I was there, and even with this jewelry business that I had, you know, eh, what happened for me, and I see this with women specifically, is eventually the work becomes unfulfilling.
Mm.
And I think we lose sight of like what is fulfilling work. And fulfilling work is actually really hard work. It requires us to be tenacious and bold and patient and forgiving. And like when we think about the most fulfilling things that we've done in our life, they weren't easy. They probably didn't even make us happy all the time, but they provided this deep level of fulfillment. And often what happens is we reach this point in our career where we aren't growing anymore. Like we came and saw and got to this point, and then it's again, it's not a destination, like, you're never gonna arrive, but then we sit at this point, and then eventually we just start circling instead of growing and continuing to grow, and I've just always said, like, when the work's not fulfilling anymore, it is just a sign that you're ready to move on and do something new.
Mm.
It doesn't even necessarily mean that you need to leave the company, but you do
Right.
need to go to your mentor and say, like, "Hey, I'm at this place where I feel like I need to be growing more. I feel a little stagnant. The work isn't as fulfilling as it used to be. Like, let's talk about a move or a new
Mhm.
account or a new responsibility or getting involved in something." I mean, there's all these things, but we get so scared. And then women, we don't like to ask for what we want. And so that's what happens. And then burnout happens. And then it's like we get to the point where we're like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. Because we
Right.
feel like we gave everything to the company versus building something together. And I think that that's the real key thing. And that's why these butterfly goals are so important because we're still fueling that pilot light that lights us up and who we are, and that's where the whole thing then starts pouring into the organizational aspect of people, the organization caring as much about the growth as the output of the people who work for them.
And the growth might be happening outside the
Mhm.
workplace. For the leader listening, I'm a big fan of side hustles and doing things that are fulfilling that are outside of work. I started
100%.
writing my first book while working in, a very demanding corporate executive role. For some companies and some leaders, that can be really threatening. They feel as though where your loyalties lying, et cetera. Um, that may be a sign that that's not a great fit for you if you're
Right.
having that kind of tension and conflict. For the person listening that says, "Well, I love all of this," and they're even thinking, "Oh, I could think of some butterfly goals," but they're the individual that says, "Well, how am I supposed to have time for that? I'm maybe still have kids at home that I'm raising, maybe on my own, and working and doing, and so I don't know where I'm supposed to squeeze in having a
Mhm.
butterfly goal."
Mhm.
What's your thoughts and advice on that?
Well, here's a fact. We always make time for what's important to us. We always do. And we find the time. Yes, we all get the same amount of time every day, but we always find the time for what's important to us. And I think that, it is about having a conversation, first off, with yourself and giving yourself the permission to be like, I do matter. I am a very important person in this equation. And I'm going to say that this is my butterfly goal. And I'm going to, have a conversation with my husband. I'm going to talk to my kids about it. I'm going to get them involved in it. And when we start getting everyone involved, or we go to our employer and say like, "Hey, I'm really committed to this year. I'm excited," and then sharing that butterfly goal with them, it creates this again, that's the expansive aspect of it, of like they want you to win. They want you to be happy. And what's going to happen is again, when we start working on ourselves, everything else gets better.
Yes.
They will see the shift. They will be like, "Oh my god, mom has just been showing up different lately." Your spouse is gonna be like, "Wow, I haven't seen her this confident in a
Yeah.
while. Like,
Yeah.
I am so proud of her." I mean, I get letters from my boys and they're always like, "Mom, it's been so fun to watch you grow your business. I'm so proud of you for what you do." And, they have stuff like, "I'm grateful that you come to my games," and stuff like that, but like the people that we love, we want to see them win. And the best leaders in organizations too, they are the ones who nurture that, who have those, they give people the time off and the flexibility to do the things that they love. And the best organizations are not only, encouraging, they're actually setting up time for it. And they're saying, "Hey, what is your butterfly goal?" I did a keynote last year with the company and they did something that I loved. They had these things called stay interviews where quarterly, instead of an exit interview, finding out like, well, why are you leaving? They're like, a stay interview is like, why are you staying? Like, what are you doing?
Right.
And one of the things that I encouraged him to add was like, what if you added a butterfly goal to this of like, hey, these are all your career professional reasons why you want to stay with our organization. But what can we do to fuel you? Like, is there a volunteer project you want to be part of? Are you looking to do something externally? What's a butterfly goal that you have? And when again, when companies take interest in personal growth, it changes the way we feel about who we work for, the culture, and everything that's going on. And it does create this sense of loyalty, like, oh my God, my company really cares about me. They care just as much about my growth as my output and driving numbers within the organization. So I we're seeing this shift organizationally for sure because of burnout, because of people leaving the workforce, this whole flex now of what's happening of people having to go back into the office. It's not enough anymore to be like, "Hey, free pizza on Fridays." It's like, "Well, what
Right.
about me? Do you care about me as an individual, as in a human?"
Right, right. And humans have choice, and they can choose to take their capital and invest it elsewhere if they don't feel like that's being invested in. And
Right.
certainly, I mean, we could probably spend a whole other podcast on the generational differences, right?
Yeah.
As I even think about my millennial and my Gen Z, and they have different expectations, and I salute it. I mean, I think it's fantastic that they don't live to work. They
Yep.
work to live, and they find that integration, but they have different expectations than certainly I was raised with, and being type A and a driver and all the things,
Yeah.
I contributed a lot to my own stress and commitment, in the workplace.
Yeah.
Uh, well, I think one of the things I wanna harken back on that you said that I just wanna emphasize is we're better when we're investing in ourselves, and the one thing my through line is always start intentionally working on your future today,
Mhm.
and that could be through applying this butterfly goal effect is what am I doing to make sure that my cup is full? What am I doing to make sure that my pilot light stays lit, to use your example? Because we are better moms, significant others, spouses, employees, etc., friends, when we're nurturing some part of ourselves. And you do start to see people differently. It's like they light up differently when they're feeding their soul through something that makes their heart sing beyond pouring into others, in
Right.
addition
Right.
to pouring into others. Yeah.
Right. Well, and it is how we raise our children. I mean, we get really concerned if our kids get so narrowed and they're only, like my son's a basketball player. Like if he suddenly was only exclusively watching basketball games, practicing and doing everything in a silo all by himself, I'd be like, "Hey, I know that you like this, but I'm a little worried about you because you don't have friends anymore. Like you're not doing the things that you used to love. You're not." And we wouldn't let them go down that rabbit hole, but as adults, we let ourselves do that, and
Mhm.
it's again, we make time for what's important, and a lot of times it doesn't. What's crazy about it is these are the things like a butterfly goal, we usually just we find the time to do it. We do it in the cracks. We apply like for the game show, it was apply a little bit here. It was when I was at a coffee with someone and they'd say, "What are you up to?" I'd say, "Well, I started my own company and I'm trying to get on a game show." They it was also just like, I mean, these aren't resume builders, but they are awesome things to have on a resume because the people will be like, "Oh, I gotta talk to this person. They've done all these things. Like, how cool is this?"
Yeah.
Great conversation starters. And you know what? It was always like, "Okay, well, before we get to your business, like, tell me about this game show thing." And you know how I ended up getting on the game show was I was at a networking event and I said that, and this guy goes, "I was on a game show and I still have the casting agency's email."
That
And
is awesome.
that's how it all happened was because I wasn't afraid to put it out there. Now, people did legitimately think I was crazy. They were like, "Are they casting in Kansas City?" And I was like, "No, like, it's gonna have to still." But I did, like, I got cast, they flew me to New York City, like, the whole thing happened because I manifested, I believed in it, and I wasn't afraid to put it out there. Like,
Yeah.
you have to own it because there are gonna be people out there who don't work on themselves, who will resent you for doing it, and then eventually they'll catch on and be like, "Well, what if I actually tried this?" They'll make you feel like it's stupid or small or dumb. First off, get those people out of your life. Like, why
Right.
do you want negative people who aren't your fans? And it'll show you like, who really is cheering for you.
Absolutely. Yes, we actually cover, negative people and surrounding yourself with positivity and now you're next because it has a huge impact on how you show up. It can be very draining of your own energy. By the way, how
Yes.
did you do on the game show? What did you
Well,
what did you come away with?
So there is a whole chapter about it in my book, and I talk about it in my
Okay.
keynote, but I'll give you the long and short of it. So I got into the winners. I was on $100,000 pyramid, and I was playing with the good doctors, Nicholas Gonzalez and Richard Schiff, and I advanced to the first round to get into the winner's circle to win $50,000. And by the way, before I got on this game show, I was like, "What in the hell am I thinking? Like, this is going to be on national TV." I am known for like saying dumb things sometimes. And I was like, "This is gonna be broadcast nationally, like, there's no getting out of it." And so the clue was famous astronauts, and I was like, "Lance Armstrong." And so, of course, he starts naming off, like, cyclists, and I was like, "Oh my god, this isn't even the right career." And so, anyway, I crashed and burned. It was a $37,500 mistake. Michael Strahan was the show host, and he was like, "Did you think he was gonna ride his bike to the moon?" And I was like,
Oh
"Yeah, I did,
gosh.
Michael." And so the long and story the short story is this: that was only halfway through the game, and I had really mentally prepared myself of like, they cast you for you. This is a show. This is a game. This is your childhood dream. Go on there and have fun. If you make a mistake, say something dumb. You're only human. Just keep playing the game versus
Yeah.
mentally, when we make mistakes, this was a huge mistake. It was a $37,500 mistake. And also total humiliation, right? I mean, Lance Armstrong, the only other astronaut I could think of was Buzz Lightyear instead of Buzz Aldrin. And so I literally froze up and was like, "Ugh." Um, but I was like, "Get back and play the game and go have some fun." So I went back and Richard Schiff was my partner and he actually made fun of me too. And I was like, "Hey, stand up, give me a double high five. Like, let's play and let's get back in the winner's circle." And then we did. We got back in the winner's circle and I won $100,000.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah. It was the wildest ride. It was so fun, and it's just become this great story of, like, turning your
Oh, for
setbacks into
heaven's
comebacks,
yes.
and, the butterfly goal of, like, things are going to happen along the way that are gonna seem so defeating that you're gonna question why you ever did it. Could you keep going? And interestingly enough, a butterfly flutters all around. Like, it doesn't fly in a upward pattern. And that is the journey of a butterfly goal. It's like you're kind of all over the place, but you just keep figuring it out. And that moment of total humiliation, the loss of the money, like, I mean, all of it, and then just being like, "Who cares? Like, this is a game. Go have fun. Go play." It was just such a reminder of, like, mental fortitude and,
Mm.
because if you spiral, like, there's no way out of it. I mean, they've done studies on people who are diagnosed with cancer and who are like, "I'm dead. I'm never gonna make it." They die, and then the people who are like, "I've got this. I can fight this. I can win it," often will beat it or will at least extend their life. So the power of positivity and mental fitness is just so important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love the story. I want to encourage the person listening to pick up a copy of Be Who You Came to Be. It's a beautiful book. It just went through a new iteration edition with
Yes.
the beautiful new cover, right? And it's
Yes, but under the cover is still the original gold foiled hardcover, so you can take the cover off and put it on your coffee table. It's a beautiful little coffee table book. So
I
once you're
love
done
that.
reading it, and so it'll still be ivory with gold foil and pretty. I wanted women to
Beautiful.
have a pretty book, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. We all need and deserve that. One quick funny thing, and then our time has gone by so fast. I
So
could talk to you
fast.
forever. I know. I was going to say, one of the things we share in common is this notion around how, as kids, we have these big dreams and these big aspirations, and really nothing sort of holds us back. We don't qualify them, and we don't think about all the societal kinds of things that
Yeah.
are put in our mind, right? Except for I was asking I have three grandchildren. Almost I'll have a fourth in March, but I was asking my little granddaughter Finley, each of them, what do you want to be when you grow up? And so I said to Finley, Finley, what do you want to be when you grow up? And she said, I don't want to be a grown up.
Good for her. I don't
I'm
either.
like, you know what, sister? I think you're onto something. Neither do I.
I know.
So
What someone asked me the other day, they're like, "How does it feel to be 40, almost 48?" And I was like, "I only know how to be young." So that's how it feels. Like I only know how to be young, and I never.
that's right.
I mean, grow up. I love that. I don't
Yeah,
wanna
I
grow.
don't want to be a grown up. That was just like so matter of fact without pause. I
Oh, I
like to
love it.
close every show with your advice to the person listening. What's one thing that you encourage them to start doing stop doing and continue doing.
Okay. Start immediately. Get your butterfly goal going. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be a getting on a game show. Like, figure it out. And then find me on Instagram, tag me. I'm doing a whole thing with butterfly goals. And if you're actually bold enough, I'm looking for people to come on my podcast to talk about either a crazy butterfly goal that they've accomplished or something that they want to do. And there's more into that. But if you're interested in that, message me that. Stop saying yes to things that don't matter to you anymore. Like, it's okay to not be the volunteer at your kid's school. It's okay to say no to this. We as pleasers, again, this is why we get into this trap. We want to say yes to everything. You don't have to say yes to everything. And you don't even have to give an excuse why. Just say, "Thank you for thinking of me, but it's not a good time. Thank you."
Yeah.
No. The answer is no. Really that
Yeah.
easy. It's so liberating too. It feels so good. And then continue to do the things that are fulfilling in your life. And if you start just doing a fulfillment inventory of like, these are the most fulfilling things, you'll find out they're not the things that make you happy all the time. They're not the things that are easy, but those fulfilling things are what create those epic amounts of true happiness and success. And so that's just my filter in life is this fulfilling? And
Yeah.
every time it's fulfilling, we keep going. And when it's not fulfilling, those are the things that you just say, "Hey, I've outgrown this." The answer is no, and I'm go find something else that's fulfilling.
No is a complete sentence.
It
Do
is
the things that bring you joy and outsource the rest, right?
exactly.
Oh my goodness, Tara, you have been such a gift. I love the message. You're really creating a movement, empowering women and giving them permission, so that they give themselves permission to lean into their joy, to set fulfilling goals, to try something that's brave, that's aligned with who they are, that's transformational and expansive, and just this notion of not in a performative way, but this really
Yes.
be who you came to be, and,
Yeah.
what a blessing your grandmother was
Oh,
to plant
oh,
that piece of thought leadership that has just evolved and grown, and talk about a butterfly, that she started
oh my gosh,
from
for
just the
real.
initial. Yeah, that
Yeah,
is we're all
beautiful.
grateful. We're
Yeah,
all
yeah,
grateful.
thank you.
So, thank you for being on the show. Thank you all for listening, tuning in. Until next time, you've got this. Congratulations on choosing to invest in yourself. I know your time is precious. Thank you for spending it here with me. I believe in helping you look up, step forward, and fully realizing your potential. If today's conversation resonated, I'd be so grateful if you'd rate and comment on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And if you know someone who would benefit, please share this episode with them. Let's stay connected. Visit me at dr-cynthia.com, and you can find me on all the socials at Dr. Cynthia Bentzen-Mercer. Until next time, remember, boldly start working on your future today.